Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel, and today I am going to be bringing you guys the second part of my first 10 books ranking, whatever you want to call it, for the Goosebumps series. Last time I did the ranking for the first 10 books, and today I'm going to be ranking the episode adaptations of those 10 books. Now, for this list, obviously you guys know the Goosebumps TV show. Curse of the Mummy's Tomb and Night of the Living Dummy did not get episode adaptations in the 90s show. So I will only be ranking 8 episodes today instead of 10 like I did with the books. And it's really interesting seeing how the episode rankings differ from the books, because my ranking for the episodes is wildly different in a lot of ways. And I think that's mainly because the 90s show, it's a very low budget show. I think we all know this as Goosebumps fans. It's very low budget, very cheesy. You know, it's a show that typically does not really have the best production value overall. There are some great stuff. The creature design is usually great. But, you know, some of the things like acting quality, cinematography, some of the stuff like that can be very hit or miss. And the show is still great. I still love the show. You know, obviously I'm not going to say anything bad about this show unless it's a bad episode. But you know, the show is very hit or miss in terms of its quality overall. Entertainment value is still there, but yeah. I'm mainly ranking these based on their quality, based on my enjoyment of the episodes, and pretty much that's all I gotta say about it. It's not too complex going into this. So again, I'll be ranking 8 episodes from my least favorite to my favorite. So I'm just gonna get right into this. And make sure to comment your rankings down below. I'm really curious to hear how you guys would rank these specific episodes. So yeah, let's just get into it. So, starting off at number 8, my least favorite episode from this set would be Let's Get Invisible. Now, Let's Get Invisible, it is one of those episodes that just, it's not very good. It's kind of overrated in my opinion. It's very poorly made. There's a lot of really weird stuff in this. There's some weird shots, like that shot of Max like gargling water in his bathroom was really odd. There's a bunch of really weird slow tracking shots on his face and reflections and stuff like that. The acting isn't very good. The effects of the mirror roll are laughably bad. As pretty much every like CGI green screen effect from the 90s show, it does not look very good. And yeah, overall this episode is just very lackluster in my opinion. I wasn't a big fan of the book either, but the book is definitely handled way better just because it has that more of an imaginative aspect, because you can envision what the world and stuff looks like in your own eyes versus the episodes. Look of it doesn't really work. The mirror also looks very bizarre. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but yeah, there's Let's Get Invisible on this DVD. And the mirror has a very unique and bizarre design. Like you'll notice that with some of the 90s show props, like they don't look like normal stuff. Like specifically this and Say Cheese and Die take very mundane and normal items and make them very sci-fi or over-the-top dramatic, and sometimes it doesn't work. I don't think the mirror, it looks fine, but I think it would have been more effective if it just looked like a normal mirror. But yeah, the episode is just, it's just not very good overall. As I mentioned, bad acting, bad effects. It's a very slow-paced episode. It just gets very boring when you're watching it. And yeah, overall, it's an okay episode. I don't think it's horrible or any means. There's definitely a lot worse in the Goosebumps show than Let's Get Invisible's episode. But of this set of episodes, it is the worst in my opinion. I gave it a solid 6 out of 10, or 5 out of 10, sorry. 5 out of 10. It's very mediocre, very average. You know, 5 out of 10 is that middle grade C. It's very average in the series. There's definitely worse episodes, but there are a lot of way better episodes in the season, or the series in general, than this one. So, yeah, that's why I have it at number 8. Let's Get Invisible. Moving on into my number 7 spot. I gave this episode a 6 out of 10. And, again, it's a solid episode. I don't hate any of these episodes on this list, aside from Let's Get Invisible, which, again, I don't hate that one either, but yeah, none of these episodes are downright horrible. We'll get to those later on in these ranking videos as I progress through the series, and you will see which ones are on that list. I've said it a few times if you've seen some of the podcasts I'm in or whatever. I've said some of the ones I think are horrible, but again, we'll save those for a later video. So moving on to number 7, as I said, I gave it a 6 out of 10, and that is Monster Blood. Now, I know technically Monster Blood and More Monster Blood are kind of an unofficial two-parter in a lot of ways. However, for the sake of this ranking, I am just ranking the first Monster Blood episode. Monster Blood, I guess Part 1. Sometimes you call it Monster Blood Part 1, sometimes it's just called Monster Blood. The DVD calls it Monster Blood 1. The show has so many weird titles for this thing, and they can't just name it one thing. We're just calling it Monster Blood for the sake of this episode, for this video here. And Monster Blood is a fun episode. If you saw my book ranking, you know Monster Blood is my least favorite book of those first 10. It's goofy, it's just not very well written overall, and just doesn't really fit within that first 10, which are generally considered to be some of the darker books of the series, and most of them are pretty dark, so Monster Blood just doesn't fit in that mix, especially coming off the heels of Welcome to Dead House and Stay Out of the Basement, and then getting followed up by Say Cheese and Die, which are all great books. It just feels like that book just does not fit in that list, in my opinion. That should have been a later book in the series, personally. But the episode, I think, is pretty solid. It's a fun episode. It's much more enjoyable than the book. You know, unlike the book, which kind of is very silly, but in some ways almost tries to be scary with it, the episode leans into the silliness. As, you know, pretty much every Goosebumps TV show episode does. It's much more silly. But this episode, I think, embraced the silliness of the concept and understood how silly the book's concept was, and just went for it and had fun. You know, the Monster Blood CGI is not great. Obviously, it's 90s CGI from a low-budget kids show in Canada. So obviously the CGI is not going to be amazing or anything like that. So that stuff looks weird, but still kind of cool, the way the Monster Blood is, like, moves and grows. You know, there's some really cool shots in here of, like, it pulling Evan into the bathtub. You know, you got some other cool visuals like that I do really like. Yeah, it's just an overall very fun episode, very enjoyable. I think the guy who plays Evan is pretty fun. If you guys didn't know, he also is the actor who played Freeburg in Freddy vs. Jason, who was the stoner who gets possessed by Freddy in the middle of the movie. Yeah, that's the same guy who played Evan in this episode, which is kind of a cool thing. Freddy vs. Jason had a lot of Goosebumps alumni, and I think I've talked about that before, and I'll talk about it more when I get to those other episodes that feature those actors. But yeah, the kid who played Evan in this episode is one of those alumni that appeared in Freddy vs. Jason, so that's pretty cool. But Andy's actress, she's okay. She's not great or anything like that. I do like Aunt Catherine in the episode. The episode version of Aunt Catherine is a lot more fun and just kind of energetic. You know, she's like conducting an invisible orchestra while listening to a classical music record, which is just so fun and silly. And it just, again, it works so well on making that character more entertaining than the book. Because in the book, she's completely deaf. She doesn't really listen to anybody. She just kind of talks her mouth and expects people to listen to her, which is okay for the book. But, like, again, the episode, I think, handles her a lot better. It handles Sarah Beth a lot better, I think. You know, the actress who plays her, again, she is very fun. She's hamming it up. She's having a lot of fun doing it, but, you know, it's very entertaining to watch her perform that character and have all these little cat-like tendencies and stuff. Like, it's a fun performance, and it's a fun episode. And, while it's not necessarily one of the greatest Goosebumps episodes ever or anything, I still highly enjoy it for the most part, and I definitely think it's better than the book. And I gave this episode, as I mentioned, a 6 out of 10. I think it's pretty solid. Now, moving on to my number 6 spot. This one is going to be interesting because of how different it is in ranking from my book ranking video. If you guys know, this was my number 1 spot in my book ranking video. It's my favorite book from the original 10 so far. In my opinion, it's still my favorite book of all the books I've read. Now I'm in the middle of reading Werewolf in Fever Swamp, and I still think this book that I have my number 1 is still my favorite. Man, the episode gets down to number 6 in my episode ranking, and that would be Say Cheese and Die. So, yeah, Say Cheese and Die's episode, it's alright. Again, there's a lot of iconic natures to it. The camera, while it looks very silly, it does look kind of cool. I do like the design of the camera. It's very unique, very, you know, 90s in a lot of ways. Very sci-fi looking, very kind of like a futuristic, like the 90s version of what a futuristic technology would look like. It's cool, it's fun. Doesn't look anything like a camera. Don't know why any of these kids would ever think it was a camera. But it's still a fun little prop that is very iconic with the Goosebumps show. And of course, the main reason this episode is so iconic is because it stars Ryan Gosling in his first acting role. So that's always a cool little bit of trivia there for, you know, people who don't really know Goosebumps, or maybe are just getting into Goosebumps and are wondering some trivia. Yeah, Say Cheese and Die was Ryan Gosling's first ever acting role. So, yeah, again, fun little thing there. It's fun to see him when he was like probably 14 or 15 years old at the time. Seeing him act in that and seeing kind of, again, where he got his start versus the major movie star he is nowadays, it's really cool. But in terms of the episode itself, it is very silly. The book has a lot of really dark and scary moments, which is what I really appreciate about the book. You know, the camera could very easily kill people, and it does kill Spidey at the end of the book. You know, it's a very, I don't know, there's just much more of a threat level to the camera in the book, the stuff it does. You know, it knocks people unconscious on a sporting game. It can cause people to get into horrific car accidents. You know, it causes somebody to break their leg. It just, all this other stuff that's really dark and sinister is very watered down in the episode. Which, again, I kind of understand. It's 90s kids television. Obviously, things are going to be watered down and dumbed down and not be as scary for kids. And, yeah, the camera suffers from that greatly in this episode. You know, the scene where in the episode they omit Michael altogether as a character. Instead, they have Bird. And, you know, if you read the book, you know that in the first instance with the camera that they encounter, Greg takes a picture of Michael on the stairs, and while he's doing it, the railing breaks, and he falls off and breaks his ankle. I think either breaks or sprains his ankle. I can't remember which one it is, but he injures his ankle severely. While in the episode, it's Bird, because, again, Michael's been omitted. And Bird, when he falls off, he's completely fine when he gets back up. He isn't injured at all. So again, that's kind of watering it down. The whole car accident sequence, while there is a very tense scene involving the car when they're all in the car and, you know, Greg's trying to show his family the picture and they get into a very close call with a truck, that scene is actually very tense and well done in the episode. I do really like that scene, and Ryan Gosling sells it really well. You know, he was great in this episode. But then when it actually comes to playing out the official car accident scene with Greg's dad, it plays it very goofy in the episode. You know, Greg's dad is, you know, in the hospital. He's in good spirits. He just has like a broken leg, and that's about it. While in the book, like, I can't remember exactly, but I think in the book he's like pretty much comatose after the accident. So yeah, again, the episode just kind of waters down a lot from the book, and that kind of just weakens some of the impact in my opinion. But again, very solid episode. You know, what happens to Spidey in the end is very different than the book. He doesn't die like he does in the books. You know, it's a very different ending, and again, not as good, very cheesy how it's done. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It kind of just comes out of left field, where he's literally just sucked into the camera after this picture is taken. Like, where did that come from, and why is that there? Like, how does that make sense? But yeah, overall, still a solid episode. I still enjoy it overall. It's fun seeing Ryan Gosling back, you know, the design of the camera is cool. But there's definitely just some stuff that brings it down for me compared to the book, which again, I absolutely love. It's my favorite book so far. And yeah, the episode, I gave this one a 6.5 out of 10. It's a solid one, but again, definitely has its flaws that bring it down for me. So, moving on to my number 5 spot. And again, this is probably going to be a controversial ranking because I know a lot of people love this episode. And again, still in the top 5 of this ranking, so I don't think you should be too mad about it. But as I mentioned in my episode review for it, this is an episode that I've never truly gotten into a lot. You know, it's one that I personally find kind of meandering at times. I don't think it needed to be a 2-parter. I'm not a big fan of the book either. Again, it's just my opinion. Again, if you disagree, then all for you guys. I'll always cool to have your own opinions on it. I'm not going to judge you guys if you do like the book and episode. It's just not my cup of tea personally. And that would be Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Now, Welcome to Camp Nightmare is one of those episodes that just feels bland to me. I think that Kai Erickson, who plays Billy in the episode, is very good. He is probably one of the best performances in the Goosebumps TV show. I think some of the other kid characters are fine. Not all of them are great, but it is what it is in the Goosebumps show. I think the guy who plays Uncle Al is fun. The guy who plays Larry is good. But yeah, that's about my only big positive. I do like some of the atmosphere. Like, some of the nighttime scenes look really good. Like, the tent scene is very creepy and atmospheric, which I really like. You know, some of the stuff with Saber, that looks really cool. But my main gripes of the episode comes from just how slow-paced it is. It's a very slow-paced episode, which I know a lot of people love about it. It's very like psychological horror. It's kind of a slow burn build up to something, but that's just not the kind of horror I enjoy, especially not when it comes to Goosebumps. It's just, you know, it just feels like it drags on a little bit at times for me personally. It gets a little boring at points. And it's very repetitive as well with the whole kid goes missing, Billy tries to convince the counselor and ask them what's going on, they deny it, and then it's just rinse and repeat for pretty much the entire episode. And that's my main gripe with it. I still think it's a very well-made episode. It probably has one of the best-looking productions. I think the setting for Camp Night Moon looks really good. But again, there's just some stuff in it that just doesn't really work for me. I do like it better than the book. I think there's definitely a bit tighter. It's definitely a bit tighter paced than the book. But yeah, it's just a very lackluster episode in my opinion, and I hate the twist ending as well. Like, I know a lot of people love it, but as I mentioned in my book episode review and book review, the twist ending is just dumb. It kind of comes out of left field. The book definitely handles it a bit better than the episode, but like, it's just not my cup of tea overall. It just, again, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I don't know. Again, it's just not my thing. But again, if you like it, then all props to you guys. And yeah, I still gave this a positive review. My overall rating of this one was a 7.5 out of 10. So I still enjoy the episode. I think it's solid. Just not my cup of tea personally. So that's why Welcome to Camp Nightmare is my number 5. Moving on to my number 4 spot. This is where we get into my favorite episodes. Top 4 episodes are my favorite episodes from this set for sure. I love all these episodes pretty equally, even though I do have some different ratings on them. So starting with my number 4, we have The Ghost Next Door. Now, The Ghost Next Door is one of those episodes that is very nostalgic for me. I grew up on it, much like the book, and I love the book. The book is so good, and I still enjoy this episode. I think it's a very underrated episode overall. It has its flaws, which I've gotten to in my episode review more, and I'll get to a little bit here. But I still think this episode is very enjoyable. I still really like it. I think the actors who play Hannah and Danny are both pretty solid. They're not amazing or anything, but they work. You know, I think overall this atmosphere and the storyline and everything is very good and very similar to the book, even though the episode does add a few things which do bring it down for me compared to the book. But you know, it is a very emotional episode. It's definitely one of those deeper episodes that really hits you in the feels, especially the ending. The ending is very well done. And in my opinion, maybe handled a little bit better than the book. Personally, I just think the way they do the ending is very sweet, very emotional, and they just did a very good job handling that. My main issue with this episode is how they handled the shadow entity. The shadow entity in the episode is much more of a prevalent threat and just presence than he is in the book, and he's not very threatening. The way they try to build this guy up as the big bad, which he is also the main villain in the book, but again, he's much more subtle in the book. The episode, he is shoved in your face from the very beginning, especially in part 2. In part 2, he is fully, you know, present and trying to teach Hannah how to be a ghost and all this other stuff that was not in the book. You know, the main twist in the book that happens about, like, I would say probably a good 2/3, maybe even 2 or 3/4 into the book, happens at the end of part 1 of the episode. And then part 2, again, just kind of expands the story out and kind of drags it down by having this shadow entity teaching Hannah how to be a ghost and just doing all this other kind of silly prank stuff that isn't really relevant to the story and just isn't, again, just kind of dumb. But yeah, and also his plot isn't the best either, both in the episode and in the book, but the episode makes it more egregious just because he's so much more in your face. And yeah, that's my main gripe with the episode overall, but I still really enjoy it. It's still a very good time to watch it. It has a couple draggy points. Part 2, again, like the first half of part 2, I feel like could have been cut. I feel like this could have been just watered down or narrowed down to a single part episode. I'm glad that it's 2 parts because I love the book and I love the story. But I feel like they could have passed it off as a single part episode if they just cut some of the filler and fluff. But overall, I think it's still a really solid one. I gave this episode an 8 out of 10. I still think it's very solid, but again, it has some flaws that does hold it back from being amazing, like the book is, but still, really solid episode. I still really like it. So yeah, Ghost Next Door, number 4. Now my number 3 spot is another one that kind of is bumped 1 point down from my book ranking. I love the book. The book was like a 10 out of 10 for me. The episode is very close to being great. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's a very, very good episode. And it's another one of those R.L. Stine specials. And I think it might be the only R.L. Stine special on this list, actually, of these first 10. I think it's the only one. And it's one of the classic two-parters. We all know it. We all love it. And that is Welcome to Deadhouse. Now, Welcome to Deadhouse is a very good episode. It is very atmospheric. The place they got for Dark Falls looks immaculate. It is very eerie, just very dismal. You know, it's a very muted color scheme, which makes the episode a whole lot creepier in terms of the atmosphere. Just having, again, all these colors be so dull and muted just adds to the creep factor of it. It's kind of similar to how Werewolf of Fever Swamp's episode does it. And I really like that aesthetic to it. I think it works really well for the sake of the episode and the atmosphere to build of Dark Falls and of the denizens and just the whole atmosphere of the episode. It's so great. You know, the actors are pretty solid. You know, Amanda and Josh, their actors are alright. You know, Josh's actor has also been appeared in some other episodes of the show. You know, he was Josh in this episode. He was Marty in Shocker on Shock Street. And I'm blanking on the kid's name from P. Allison's Can Be Murder, but he was in P. Allison's Can Be Murder as well. I think it was Jerry, I want to say. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now, but yeah, he's in P. Allison's Can Be Murder as well. But yeah, it's a great episode. Their performances are okay. The parents do a great job, though. All the people who play the Dark Falls denizens are really good, really creepy, really just intimidating overall. And again, it just has this great atmosphere to it, and probably some of the scariest moments of any Goosebumps episode. You know, seeing the hands like busting out of the closet wall is really creepy. The whole climax where they're like chasing the family upstairs and everything through the house is also really eerie. There's just a lot of great sequences like that. Obviously, it could never go as dark or disturbing or gory as the book could, because the book is very graphic and disturbing in a lot of scenes. I'm frankly shocked Stein got away with it, but obviously the episode couldn't really fully deliver on that aspect, but it's still a very solid episode, and yeah, I still really enjoy it. I think it's a really good time. Definitely one of the high recommendations from the Goosebumps show. Now, the other thing that it does add is the wreath, which is not in the book, which is basically like this protective wreath the family has that's like a family heirloom that the mom loves, but all the other family members hate. And it's kind of this plot device in the episode where they think it's to help protect them from, or they think it's drawing in these zombies, these Dark Falls denizens. You know, they think it's drawing them in, it thinks it's attracting them, and so they have this whole thing where they end up burning the wreath, and it turns out, no, this thing was protecting them from it the whole time, and now that they burned it, they're free game for these guys to come and kill them. Which is pretty dark, but like, the wreath element wasn't very necessary. I don't know why they added it in. It just feels like they kind of wanted to have some kind of iconic prop for the episode, I guess. I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird decision to add that in, but it doesn't detract from the episode too much. I still gave this episode a 9 out of 10. I still think it's a really good episode, and is a high recommendation for anybody who has not seen it. It's fantastic. It's a really great episode, and I'd really, really recommend it. So, yeah. Number 3, Welcome to Deadhouse. Moving on to the top 2. Now, the top 2 are both really good episodes. One of them is still like a 9 out of 10. I think that there's still a lot of great aspects to it, but it doesn't compare to the other one I have at my number 1 spot. At my number 2 spot, which as I said, also a 9 out of 10, like Welcome to Deadhouse, is another two-parter, and that is Stay Out of the Basement. Now, Stay Out of the Basement is an episode that is very good. Again, it's a very well-made episode. It's easily one of the best from Season 1. You know, Season 1 had a lot of phenomenal stuff. You know, you got like Haunted Mask, Stay Out of the Basement, you know, Girl Who Cried Monster. A lot of great stuff in Season 1 that we all love. Most people say Season 1 is the best season. I kind of think Season 2 is a little bit better, because there's a lot more episodes that I like in Season 2. But, you know, those first 2 seasons are very evenly matched. But yeah, Stay Out of the Basement, easily one of the best episodes of Season 1. There's a lot of really great elements to it. You know, the practical effects of all the plant creatures, and, you know, the plant clone dad, just all the stuff, all the body horror with Dr. Brewer, very well done. The Judy Katz, who is the actor who plays Dr. Brewer in the episode, is phenomenal. He's one of the best actors of this whole show. This man kills it in the role. And he just nails that kind of really creepy side to him. But he also has this kind of tender, caring, fatherly side to him at times. And it just makes his performance so much creepier in that sense. How he could flip on a dime. And that aspect alone just really makes this episode stand out as one of the best. The way the basement looks is really cool. I love that like very bright green lighting that the basement has. It looks very, I don't know, there's just something very sinister about that to me. You know, the living plant creatures, again, the practical effects look great. The body horror effects, like the leaves growing out of Dr. Brewer's head and the green blood coming out of the arm and stuff, is really well done and creepy. You know, you have such iconic imagery. You know, the worm bed is really an eerie visual. You know, the actors who play Margaret and Casey, they're alright. I think Becky Lantos is the name of the actress who plays Margaret. She's solid. I don't hate her or anything like that. She was also Corrine in How I Got My Shrunken Head. She's fine. Like, her and Casey's actors both are okay. Casey's not very good at acting, but it is what it is. Again, it's Goosebumps. Most of the time, the kid acting's not the greatest. It doesn't detract from how much I love this episode. There's just a lot of really great stuff to it, you know. Even though some of the effects can look a bit dated, like the, you know, living vine that it strangles the kids out in the backyard. That effect doesn't hold up the greatest, but it's still a solid episode. It's still a really great one. Highly recommend it for anybody who's watching the season or just the series in general. It's definitely a good starter point. It has a very good atmosphere to it, very good build-up. It's another two-parter, and it's one of the best two-parters in terms of the pacing. It builds the mystery. It doesn't linger on something too much. It's not boring. It's just very good. It's very good, and a high recommendation for me, as I said. Definitely check out Stay Out of the Basement. It's amazing. 9 out of 10 for me personally, just because there are some little aspects that bring it down. However, moving on to my number one. And you guys will probably know this if you saw my book review, or my episode review for this one. And this is one of my favorite episodes of the show. Probably a top 10, honestly. Maybe even top 5. I would say it's probably top 5. I love this episode. It's something that I've always loved ever since I first saw it. And it's just a perfect episode in my opinion. Probably one of the darkest and scariest episodes of the show. Has so much great tension and atmosphere and just great practical effects and everything about it. And that is The Girl Who Cried Monster. Now again, you saw my episode review for it. You know how much I love this thing. This episode is just, in my opinion, it's the perfect episode. While yes, again, child acting is not great from, I can't remember the actress's name, who plays Lucy. She's fine. The kid who plays Randy, again, he's a young kid. I'm not going to fault him for it. He's hilarious in this episode. I don't care what people say. His acting may not be the best, but he's so funny. He's probably the funniest younger sibling character in Goosebumps. You know, the parents do great. And of course, you can't talk about his performances in this episode without talking about Eugene Lipinski, who plays Mr. Mormon. He is a standout actor. He's probably, in my opinion, the best adult actor in Goosebumps. He's just so great in the role. He's so creepy, so sinister, and there's just moments, especially when he turns into the actual monster form, where he is downright terrifying. You know, the scene where he's chasing Lucy through the library is super tense, super creepy, and very well done. The lighting in the library is top-notch. That like kind of creepy blue atmospheric lighting they have throughout it looks great. The practical effects in Mr. Mormon's monster form look great, and even the transformation looks really good. You know, the scenes of Mr. Mormon like eating the bugs and all that stuff is really gross and well done. Everything about this episode is just amazing in my eyes. I just love it so much. It is easily a high recommendation. Again, if you're starting your kids out in Goosebumps, I think I mentioned this in my episode review, but if you're starting, you have younger kids, you're starting them out in Goosebumps, I would not recommend starting them out on Girl Who Cried Monster just because, you know, it's a very scary episode, but like, it's really good. I think it's really good. Definitely wait till a little bit till your younger kids are a bit older to watch it, because again, it'll probably scare them really badly. Same with like Welcome to Dead House, I would say. But it's still a really great episode. If you haven't watched it, you gotta sit down and watch this episode. It's truly something special. It is something special in the Goosebumps show. It's one of the earliest episodes of the show. I think it's the 4th episode. Technically 3rd, because Haunted Mask was a 2-parter. That's technically one adaptation, so it was technically the 3rd episode they ever adapted for the show, and they really nailed it on the head. It is so good. I keep repeating myself here because there's not much else to say about it. Just check it out. Take my word for it. Check this out. I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's amazing. That's all I gotta say. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. That will do it for my ranking of the first, or the 8 episodes that adapted books from those first 10. And yeah, again, as I mentioned before, leave your rankings down below. I'd love to see how you guys would rank these episodes. And if you want to give your little star ratings, feel free to go ahead and do that as well. And I just appreciate all you guys watching. We're really close to hitting that 400 subscriber milestone. I appreciate all you guys so much for subscribing to the channel and watching the videos. It's awesome, and I just appreciate every single one of my subscribers. You guys are great. So I'm hoping to maybe do something special for the 400 subscriber milestone. I don't know what yet or when I'm gonna have time to do it, but I'm hoping that I can maybe make some kind of special video for the 400 subscriber special. So if you have any ideas for that, make sure to comment them down below. I would love to hear your ideas for what I can maybe do for this special video. And until then, I will see you all next time, and I hope you all have a scary day.